Welcome to Booked, the bookstore education podcast brought to you by the American Booksellers Association. In this episode, we'll be listening to Cost of Goods Sold, Optimizing Inventory for Maximum Profit, a session that was presented at Winter Institute 2025 in Denver, Colorado.
All right, my phone says it's 2:30, so I guess we'll go ahead and get started. I'm John Cavalier, and I want to welcome everybody today to the Cost of Goods Sold, Optimizing Inventory. Yep. Is that better? Yeah. Jesus. But yeah, Cost of Goods Sold, Optimizing Inventory for Maximizing Profit. That's what we're all here to talk about today. And before we get started, just want to go through a few of the housekeeping items that ABA has for us here. First off, all of the handouts and the slides that we're going to be going through, they're in the app, so don't feel like you have to take super detailed notes. They're all there for you. At the end, if you wouldn't mind filling out the session survey, I understand that the panel that gets the most respondents gets a special prize, so if you guys can help us out, I'd love to find out what that prize is. And also, everything that is being said today and talked about was being recorded for BookWeb and the Booked podcast, as well as all the other sessions that are going on. So I know there's probably another session that was your number 2, so you can check those out. And then at the end, we'll open everything up for Q&A, and that's when PK in the back's got a couple of microphones. Whenever, if you have a question, he'll come around to bring a mic if you wouldn't mind waiting for that. The last little bit of housekeeping is, of course, antitrust guidelines, which we've all known by heart by now. But we're encouraged to share ideas and support during the conference, but the Sherman Antitrust Act prohibits us from discussing price or pricing policies, boycotts, or dividing up the market. So, without further ado, we'll get into our session description here. Cost of goods sold is one of the key metrics for ABA's ABACUS survey and your store's profitability. This session will focus on how you can manage COGS through ordering, negotiating, and diversifying your inventory. We'll discuss high-margin books like remainders and used books, pricing and management of non-book items, and how and when to buy strategically. You'll gain insight to prioritize improving your COGS while enhancing your store's financial health and overall success. The agenda for today, we're going to go through introductions. We're going to go through some definitions. We're going to talk about efficiencies, and then we're going to talk about co-op and different publisher promotions. And then we'll also talk about the value of used books, remainders, and non-book items. And then we'll kind of wrap up and go to a Q&A. So, who are we? I'm John Cavalier. I own Cavalier House Books. I've got 2 stores in South Louisiana. One in Denham Springs, Louisiana, one in Lafayette, Louisiana. We're about an hour and a half apart from each other. And I've been a bookseller for 21 years now. So this is actually in July. It'll be my 21st year. And I'll go down this way and you guys can.
Hi, I'm Elise Stutz. I work at Flyleaf Books in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. I've been there about 10 years in October. And prior to that, I was a librarian. I am the lead buyer there and do almost all the buying, except I'm handing off some kids' frontless buying.
My name is Melinda Powers. I am the head book buyer at Bookshop Santa Cruz in California. I wish that was my goat, but it's not, but it's very cute. I am the head book buyer. I've been at Bookshop for 10 years. Before that, I was a person of wearing many hats at Capitola Book Cafe, including part owner, but also purchasing on all the different levels. So.
Hey, I'm Cody Morrison from Square Books in Oxford, Mississippi. I'm the adult book buyer there, and we have 4 stores on a small town square. So we have a children's store as a children's buyer, and we have a sidelines buyer as well. So I can kind of speak to all that. We do remainders, used books, and I've been a bookseller for 33 years.
Great. So, defining cost of goods sold. So cost of goods sold is how much money you paid for inventory, including freight. So just to put that out there so we're all working off the same definitions. Other helpful terms.
All right, I guess we're reading these aloud. Profit margin, how much money your bookstore is making after subtracting all the direct and indirect costs involved.
And then these costs are, so direct costs are expenses that go directly into producing the goods and providing the services, such as paying staff wages, whereas indirect are general business expenses that keep your store operating, like rent, marketing, etc.
And then inventory turns, calculated as the cost of goods sold divided by inventory. This ratio will show you how quickly inventory is moving from your shelves. And another helpful term is sell-through, the percentage of product sold by a retailer after being shipped by its supplier, typically measured during a 1-month period.
So yeah, first topic we wanted to talk about was maintaining efficiency. And this was a big one. Don't buy things just because they're on sale. We're all guilty of it. Melinda, if you want to talk a little bit more about that.
Well, yeah, I mean, one of the things when we were having our initial discussion about how to maximize discounts, one of the easiest ways is through, promotional opportunities that publishers offer to you. But one of the things that we wanted to be clear about is, one, to not take every single promotion, but make sure that you really understand your store, that your terms. So like if you're net 30 and net 90, so that you know how quickly you need to sell a book in order to have paid for it, as well as balancing the amount of time you have to search out single item discounts versus, throwing in a promo code. Because we all know that we have so many things to do in so little time. So while you could be thinking you're saving points by seeking out all the promo codes, you need to also make sure you're not spending so much time on it that you're not addressing other things that you want to be addressing. And also one of the things that we did discuss, like Bookshop is a large store with a back room that has some overstock space, and so we're able to take advantage of more of the discounts, or more of the promotional allowances that publishers will offer, especially on the front list, because we know that we can store it in the back room. But obviously, if you're a smaller store, you might not have that overstock opportunity. So you kind of need to be aware of which titles we're going big in, knowing that you only have a limited amount of overstock space.
So what are some of the ways that you guys kind of keep track of everything? Just all the different details from all the promo codes that come our way, all the different, obviously working with reps is always the top priority, but what are some organizational tools that you guys kind of use, or what do you guys kind of keep in the backs of your minds? Because one of the things that I know I always think about is just like the seasonality of everything. When we're doing our book fair buying. And so we always try to front load everything for us. And so we try to front load everything, and then we know we're going through these busy seasons, and then we try to sell down and then reorder as needed.
Right. We have a team of buyers that do frontlist and backlist buying. And so we use a Google sheet with multiple tabs so that we can keep each other, like there's a check-in tab that we can remind each other to use promo codes, or if we've used them, or if they're expiring soon. And then we also have other pieces of it, but we have a particular tab that has all of our promo codes by publisher, and we pull them as they expire. But that allows us to see if it's an ongoing code, if it is a single use or a multi-use code, and we can check off how many times we've used them and kind of check in with each other about whether or not we want to save it for a particular buy, or like we do a winter reading program where we give an offer to our customers to choose to read 3 books within an 8-book selection over a 4-month period. And so we choose, when we choose those books, we really try to stock up for almost what we can pretty much guarantee will sell through on the outset, so that we can use a promo code and get the extra discount on it.
Awesome. Cody, one thing I'm kind of curious about with you guys have 4 stores that are all right next to each other. How do you guys think about the sell-through of the inventory that you're buying, in terms of where you're placing it in the various stores, but also in terms of, negotiating for those extra discounts, or, taking advantage of promos? Right.
So most turns are very, looked at metric in our business, but I think we look more at profit margin, because we do have so many stores and sections, and we have a like Melinda, a sort of living document with all the promos on there for different specials. And we look forward to, like, we have the Oxford conference for the book coming up, and myself and the children's buyer, who also do the backlist and daily replenishment and daily ordering, will look at those and we'll update that and we'll plan ahead for those. I think ABACUS is very helpful because, you can look at your COGS from last year and think about how you can, what you can do different and how you can make those metrics become more valuable by using those promos specials. And Ingram has if you don't do a lot of direct ordering, Ingram also has that +3 front list special. It's just looking forward, and each of having 4 locations, I suppose, is no different except for the sell-through maybe, and the ability to just monitor all these different specials in the same different locations in the same way. I mean, we're all towards that same goal of maximizing profit and looking forward to how we can maximize that.
So how do you guys think about turn versus margin? How does everybody else kind of think about it?
I mean, I think that turn is really important to consider, especially when doing like a section analysis. But oftentimes, if you can explain the reason, I guess 2 pieces of it is, I think of it, is like if you can explain the reason the turn is for that section and how relationally you can improve it, then I don't think it's worth saying, I want a goal of at least a 3 or 4 or 5 turn, because some sections just aren't going to turn that way. But we choose to have that section in the store to be who we are and to like kind of follow through on our mission and stuff. So I feel like they're kind of like guidelines, but I think that in combination with profit margin, was that the part you asked? Yeah, that in combination with profit margin. I mean, I think that if you're always trying to maximize your profit margin, both in thinking about when you're purchasing just at any level, but also like if you are in the like subject of publisher promos, like if you know where you're going to place it in the store and how you're going to sell through the quantity of book you're bringing in, then it's a lot easier for me to kind of tinker with like profit margin at that point.
I think about profit margin when I'm thinking about like where and how I'm ordering the book, who I'm ordering it from, and what promo code, and like when I'm ordering it. And then turn is more about if I'm going to order it at all. Like, does it need to be on my shelf? So those are the 2 ways. Right. Yeah. Think about it.
Yeah, I'm super lucky that my business partner is my wife, and so she tends to focus more on margin, and I tend to focus more on turn. So I'm always trying to figure out more ways to sell things more quickly, and she's just trying to always squeeze an extra nickel out of everything that we order. So we work together really well in that respect. But I also kind of think about it in terms of like a checking account versus a savings account, where like our checking account is, we want that cash flow coming through, but then I'm also always super excited to buy like a Halloween title out of season for an extra super duper discount, just because I know like that's my, those are my gold bars that I have hidden under my bed kind of thing. So yeah, talking about some specific things now, prioritizing co-op and publisher promotions.
Sorry.
And so one thing that I did want to mention about co-op specifically is that ABA, for ABA's purposes and ABACUS, it's categorized under advertising expenses, which there are several different reasons for, and PK would be able to enlighten us during Q&A probably for some of that stuff. But we're going to talk about it a little because it is kind of so linked to buying, right? And so what do you guys want to take lead on co-op? Yeah.
I mean, co-op is this wild mess of like changing arrangements with every publisher, except for those who have like a premium marketing program where it kind of strips away a lot of those. So I would just make sure that I think that the best use of your time, because that's one of the ways I think of it, is just grab the low-hanging fruit first. So make sure that you're taking advantage of signing up for like the premier marketing plan if you can, so that it just kind of settles most of it. Like a silo event co-op, and then have that happen in one way, and then just handle the ones that you can grab quickly and just be done and then keep tackling like bite size.
Yeah, honestly, thinking about this panel made me realize that I need to be more intentional how I think about co-op. As far as my role as a buyer goes, our events team generally claims co-op. I do display co-op when I'm ordering front list, decide if I want to stretch to get, 12 to get the extra whatever. But I am going to try to start in, my spring meetings or buying for summer, just with each rep checking in. Okay, what are your latest B2B terms? What is your current co-op? And just make sure I'm current with all that information. So that's my plan to start.
That's what we do too, and that's really helpful. And we do it pretty much every season, even though it may not change, because we also have turnover in staff, and so we may have a new events coordinator or a new marketing manager. So, we keep a Google Doc and try to keep that accessible to everybody who might be involved in it. But it's a lot.
Yeah, we were smart enough. The fantastic Jill Hendricks of Fiction Addiction does a co-op class, and she has a Trello board that she kind of organizes for keeping track of all the different co-op opportunities and policies and everything. And that was a big game changer for us, because it was a way of thinking about it. And for us, it was not so much of trying to think about it in a holistic way, but thinking about it in chunks where it's more manageable, where, we're thinking about it during the buying process, but we're also thinking about it in little things that we can kind of delegate out to staff to help document different things and to help report different things. So the next slide, the 2023 ABACUS report found that those who reported claiming co-op funds have a positive correlation between being more profitable and or more likely to be in the high profit data category. And yeah, I would echo that, because I know for us, we went from probably maybe a couple $1,000s claiming co-op annually just because we were so disorganized about it, to now, we've probably multiplied it times 10. And we've just gotten really efficient at it. So I've definitely stressed that.
Can you share some ways that you're efficient at it?
Yeah, for sure. So again, with Jill's Trello board, we owe all the credit to that, because it just gave us a way to workflow through it. So like, for example, with all of the different co-op that we're getting, when Michelle, my wife, is doing the buying and everything, whenever we're getting, per title display co-op or anything like that, she's got a way to document it so that way on the accounting side of things, I know what to expect whenever it's coming down the pike. Newsletter co-op, we've got more efficient ways of documenting our newsletter when they go out, and taking screenshots and actually making like a repository for all of the information, so that way it's broken down into the smallest possible bites, so that we don't actually have to sit there and do it all at one time. We can do it every time the newsletter goes out, we can keep those little things going. But yeah. Publisher promos.
That was where I was like, oh, I'm sorry, I talked about it too soon.
But yeah, publisher promos. What were some of you guys' favorite promos? I know HarperCollins always does like a 62% level reader promo. Holy cow, we love that.
Yeah, there's a lot of great ones, and I do all the daily replenishment and see what our average discount for a title sold, like To Kill a Mockingbird or whatever it may be, and if I can keep that at a plus 5%, by using these specials, then that makes me happy. We used to actually buy a lot of, when I took over the buying some 20 years ago, we used to do a lot of non-returnable, even with big companies like Hachette and university presses. And our theory was that, you'd make it up on the back list for any front list that maybe didn't move. You had to be really cautious and nimble to do that. But now with the promo specials, we're able to, we switched to all returnable, and we're able to almost equal some of those same margins by doing that. So there's a lot of great ones out there for sure. Soho just in the rep pick said they had a plus 10% this summer. So, I mean, that's huge,
The ones that we like doing the most in general are the ones that you can just slide into any replenishment order, and you don't have to like title wise figure out what counts and how many you have, unless it's done on a front list, which is a very targeted, easier Edelweiss filter to see if you're making your marks. Unless, once again, like if you have, like we have a small an indie press display in our fiction room, and each month or 6 weeks or so we highlight a particular publisher and then bring in some of their work. And so then that would be a moment where like Europa makes perfect sense for us to really spend an extra bit of time to make sure that we are stocking for that display and as well as in the store, and utilizing their like more targeted discounts. But anything that is just an automatic, like you stick the promo code in when you're sending your EDI or whatever, is like our favorites.
Yeah, definitely. That's funny. Europa just jumped, but we have an indie press section too. I saw that promo come through. I'm like, oh, they're April.
Yeah.
This is a good discount. I too like the ones that you can, just backlist, knowing when backlist is. I keep track of all of it's mostly just me doing the buy-ins, and we use Anthology as our point of sale. So I'm just leave notes to myself in like the notes field and the vendors. I keep it all up to date. And for publishers that kind of always have a promo and then one ends and you don't hear anything from, I will chase down reps, be like, when's the next promo coming? Can I hold an order till then? Is it worth it? Is it not? Some of the ones that aren't worth it, like there's a publisher that every quarter has their plus 2%. Plus 2% in $1,000 order is not very much money. It's $20. So it's not worth, for us, it's not worth like holding an order. And we want to put it in a big order and when we use it, but I won't hold an order to make it really big to just get a little bit more money because I'm just missing out on sales at that point by not having it on our shelves. So
let's talk a little bit about some of the categories of books. A lot of stores carry them. A lot of stores don't. But yeah, the value of used books, remainders, and sidelines. So used books, first off, how many folks carry used books? So yeah, less than half, I would say, huh? But yeah, used books. We started our store in 2009, and I would say that we were probably 70% used, 30% new. We moved a couple years ago, and that's probably flipped now. More new, less used, just because we're, the time processing used inventory is a little more cumbersome than the new stuff. But I can't stress enough, one of the crazy things about books is, I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but people tend to devalue them. People tend to not, think that they're worth very much. And so it's absolutely crazy because it's, where we're located in Denham Springs, Louisiana, specifically, there's this weird dichotomy of books where people have sort of a reverence for them, but also they're like these consumable items. And so they don't want to hold on to them, but they don't want to get rid of them. And so it's kind of a weird situation where for us, we don't buy. We only offer credit that gives you discounts on stuff at the store. So for us, used books come into our inventory and it's pure profit, and I can't tell you how many times, literally probably 5 or 6 times in my book selling career, I've had people that were cleaning out storage units and have donated trailer loads of books to the store. And it's literally just pure profit at that point. It's just staff time, storage, processing. But that's all manageable. So how do you guys kind of work with used books?
Yeah, so we one of our stores, Off Square Books, which is our lifestyle annex, when we first got that building, we got it for the event space and the shipping and receiving space, and we needed something to fill it up. So we started doing used books. We buy every Wednesday and Saturday there'll be a buyer available for a 2-hour period in the morning and a 2-hour period in the afternoon. And you can go on our website and sign up. We pay cash or credit. We pay about a third of what we think we can sell it for, and you'll get about another 15% for credit as opposed to cash. And then do we want to go into remainders now, or do you want me to do that later?
Just go with the flow.
So same store, we do remainders as well. Again, we got into it to fill up the space, and we used to go for more depth and less, more breadth and less depth. And over time, the front part of that store has become, as I said, a lifestyle store with gardening, cooking, sidelines, magazines. So it's changed a bit, but we go to the T-Rex Remainder show, and you can really, we do more depth now. So if I see a Mississippi book, like there was a William Faulkner book that Pals had, a tiny little biography from the Overlook series. And I think, I asked them how many they had. They said they had 1,000. And I said, well, this is what you're asking for. What will you give me if I take them all? So we got that, and we sold it at different prices throughout, the last several years. So we find stuff that's very specific to our area, not necessarily what we're selling at the other store. But, you do have that flexibility. We usually mark it up 50% from the net cost, and then add $1 to cover the shipping because the shipping can eat into it. But it's really been a great way, and we have a whole separate customer base that are there for bargain books and remainders, as well as used books.
Yeah, one of my favorite things about panels like this is that we all kind of do things differently, and so for us, we're just getting into remainders because we've done used books for so long, and we've just grown to a point where now with our 2 stores that we feel like we have a base to spread it out and actually do remainders more successfully. And so, I think that's really interesting because and you mentioned the T-Rex show. Tell us a little bit about the show, because I've never been to a show like that before.
Yeah. So we, at the end, we'll have a list of remainders you can go to with the minimums and their websites. A lot of them you just do online fairly often and quickly. But T-Rex, there used to be a big show in Chicago called Cerobi, but that sort of went away post-COVID. So T-Rex is half-price books, has a arm called Texas Bookman that sold remainders for a long time. And they started a show in their half-price warehouse with about 30 vendors. And they have it twice a year, once in the spring for 3 days. And then I think it's May 23rd through 26th this year. And then they have another one in September. And it's I would advise checking it out because you have a lot of vendors all at once. You can get a feel for what's out there, and it's a good way to get started.
Sidelines. Holy crap, we sell a lot of stickers. For us right now, stickers and slime. Stickers and slime. Stickers and slime. We can't sell enough.
Slime.
Stickers and slime. Yeah.
And stuffies.
Oh, yeah. Always stuffies. Yeah. But yeah, so what are some of you guys' favorite sideline items that really help that bottom line?
Well, we do socks and puzzles, candles, all kinds of stuff. But the stuff that I like to, the best thing that works for us is branded stuff. Like we have stickers and postcards with our logo on them. We have notebooks. We have patches, and they're easy to design. T-shirts. You can just use Canva to kind of design it with an image, and we go to local vendors for as much as we can, and then we try to find other vendors. Pens, we'll get something in, I'm like, will somebody pay $3 for a Square Books pen? Apparently they will, and so that's great. So
what margin-wise on, say, a coffee mugs versus store-branded coffee mugs, what kind of difference do you guys look at there?
Well, I think the only ones we sell we have a local artist that does watercolors of the store and the Square and Faulkner's home. And so I think everything we sell is branded. Is that what you're saying?
Difference just like general stickers versus y'all's branded merchandise, or general T-shirts versus y'all's branded T-shirts. Is the branded stuff more profitable? Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's just because we can work with people and say, if we order 100 T-shirts as opposed to 50, can we get a better discount? So we just keep finding different vendors and working with people locally who will give us a better deal, and we don't have to pay for shipping. So, yeah, it's better. Yeah.
Well, it's not my favorite sideline to buy or to work with, but some of our most profitable sidelines are calendars. They're kind of boring, but I just ran the numbers on our calendars last year. We sold, I don't know, we're a medium-sized store. We sold about 1,300 calendars, and we only had 10 left over, which seems like a lot of calendars. I'm shocked that people still are buying them, but our cost of goods sold, I ran the numbers on it, was just about 58%, and that's good money on calendars. So the margins are high there.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, we haven't carried calendars ever.
Really?
Yeah, I've never carried calendars. Yeah. I'm gonna consider it now. Yeah. Over at, this was a slide that we had. Get creative and crafty with your sidelines. What are we looking at here?
Right. So we had to have we have a very large 2-story building with a balcony, and we had to replace the boards on it, and they're painted. We have this, iconic kind of sky blue color of it, and we were getting a new floor put in, and someone just had the idea like, hey, what are y'all doing with all that wood? And we said, we don't know. And so we decided we would just cut it into this, very it's about this big in blocks, and we would just sell it as like a memento because we're lucky enough to have so many people. It's college town, so people come back again and again. And then we thought, well, let's make a certificate of authenticity, and we numbered them all, and we sold them for $5, and we sold over 3,000 of them. So it was, it wasn't free, but it definitely has paid for the balcony, and people do all kinds of weird things with them, and it's great.
That's fantastic. We renovated our building 2 years ago, and I'm thinking, well, the stuff that I threw in dumpsters that maybe we should have. Yeah. And so, I think that's all we've got for our slideshows here. Did you guys have any parting thoughts or anything before we open up to Q&A? We go to Q&A? Sure. Well, if so the resources page is on the app. Feel free to download that. It's got great places to buy remainders, a few other tips and tidbits. But without further ado, we'll go to Q&A, and we've got microphones coming up.
Microphone is coming. Hey, Steve.
Thanks, guys. I wanted to ask if you could speak briefly about profit margin or discounts and COGS when it relates to author events. Briefly. I just asked because we had a big author event last year where we knew we were going to, it was ticketed, we knew we were going to sell it out. So we sold 500 tickets, 500 books we knew we were going to sell. We ordered 500 copies. And it was our rep that said, why don't you make this order non-returnable for an extra 6%? But not every publisher can do single. So I was just wondering if you had any other hacks like that, because I never would have found that if my rep didn't point out that you can just have this one order be non-returnable and just get a crazy margin on something you're going to sell 500, 1,000 copies of. So, do you have anything like that?
That's a good rep.
That's a good rep.
Yeah, I would also say just, find out from your reps which publishers also have special terms around event orders, because sometimes they'll do free returns on event orders and things like that, which is another thing to really consider as you're imagining. Because returns, of course, do affect your cost of goods as well.
Yeah. I think also on, sorry.
No, go for it.
Also on say a title that an author is coming to your store for is a front list title, and you already know they're coming and they've got a plus whatever percent on the front list, I'm just going to go ahead and put that number in there right there. Mm-hmm. So that's a good way to do that. Get a little extra.
Yes.
One other thing that it just reminded me of that we didn't mention, but make sure that you have B2B accounts set up with all of your publishing houses as well. Yeah.
How often do you all calculate cost of goods and profit margin in turn?
I'll start. I'm not at that level in the store. The owner looks at all of that. So, I ran the numbers on calendars specifically. Once a year, I'll do something like that. But I'm interested to learn how to do better on that front. So.
As I said, I think the abacus is very important. And, of course, once we get that back, we take a hard look at that and try to figure out, where we're at. We also run, we're an Ibid store, but I guess whatever POS system you use, we run reports on different sections and see what the turns are, see, maybe you think you're a great, fiction's our favorite, but do we sell it as much as we think we do? Like romance, we were the 6 turns and the profit margin was just nuts because we were using all these specials to get the Sarah Moss and all the things that were going. So So we look at it sort of monthly, I guess, but really, really hard after once a year.
We have a monthly flash report where we not only do we have can we look at it by section to see how they're performing, but we also have turn goals for each section. And so you can actually see on a month-to-month or a year-over-year how the each section is performing in relation to itself. So like essays for us might be a 2.5 term, but if it's staying there, then we're happy. But we expect romance to have like probably a 6 turn or something like that. But the piece about that we get into the weeds of sometimes, and then we have to jump back out of, is to make sure that you're not just looking at those numbers, but you're walking into your store and you're looking at the section itself, because there's often a book or a reason that it's either turning, or it doesn't matter if it's a slow turn and you're like, I need to weed my inventory, but if it's a spare section, then you need to make sure it's a sellable section as well, I guess.
Yeah.
How do you set your turn goals?
We kind of like that, basically, like we look to see what the current turn is. We put a goal of like if it can improve, and then we also eyeball the section to see like, I think we're good here, or there's room for growth, or we can expand the section or need to decrease it. So I like that.
Yeah, we also we look at those numbers kind of on a monthly basis. We're in the process of kind of redoing it right now because we bought our second location, and so we're kind of reconciling all the different categories at both stores to make them match. And one of the greatest things, we actually hired a part-timer that is a third-year accounting major at the local university, and they have been quite invaluable. Yeah.
I've got, but for what it's worth, we run internal financials monthly also and look at the cost of goods. I think that's a good practice. But you brought up ABACUS, you brought up turns. I have questions on both, but about the ABACUS, and in the presentation, you guys brought up co-op and partnership. And I heard in a session the other day on budgeting, at least a few stores said that they put co-op credits into inventory, which means against cost of goods sold. And I just want to make a plea to everybody, please don't do that. Because the ABACUS is only as good as the information we feed into it. And if people are putting co-op credits into against cost of goods sold, as opposed to marketing, a negative marketing against marketing expenses, it distorts and really removes the value of that cost of goods number on the ABACUS. In fact, I'll be honest, I don't even pay attention to the cost of goods on the ABACUS anymore. I could lower our cost of goods by over 2% if I move all of our co-op there. But that's not real. So that's just my plea to everybody. Please put partnership co-op into a separate GL, and then the ABACUS will have more value. PK probably has more to say.
PK, if you want to add to that, yeah.
Thank you, Ron. You're hired. So, absolutely, I couldn't have said it better. So one of the things I put there is account numbers, where to get, it's so easy in QuickBooks, everything defaults to cost of goods sold. So when you get a credit, you have to make sure it doesn't just automatically gets credit to cost of goods sold. Make sure you choose a different account. And I encourage everybody to have a separate account for co-op, because, you're falsely telling publishers, hey, we're getting such a good cost of goods sold, which is not true. Co-op is separately. So please use that separate. And by the way, I also encourage monthly cost of goods sold report.
One other thing I'll add, if you ask any publisher, is co-op additional discount, they will say no, that it's meant to be advertising offset. So.
Yes, thank you.
I was wondering about returns versus putting something on sale. Do you have any advice on when to choose one strategy over the other for lowering cost of goods sold?
What do you guys do?
Let's see. So are you just asking if, when you should return and when you should just put stuff on sale? Like, is it, okay. So yeah, we used to run this thing where we would do like a New Year's sale, and the books were everything that we knew we were going to send back. We were like 10% off or whatever. And it was only for New Year's Day, because we were thinking we were saving freight on doing that. And then we just kind of looked at it a little harder, and we're just, we're like, no, we're just going to send it back. I mean, we do have some stuff that has gone past the date, and we'll put that on sale and make it a remainder in place along with our other remainders, I guess. But yeah, I mean, we pull like 3 times a year by publisher and sort it that way, and then we'll just do like section pulls, and so we're sort of doing it like constantly. So I don't know. For us, we just send it back if we can.
Yeah, we're in the same boat. We send it back if we can. We do twice a year, big returns, and it's not necessarily the big game changing thing for me. So we started doing our state book festival, and so we have these big event returns that we're doing at the end of the year every year now, because we have this huge festival that we're doing. And I've started using pretty much exclusively palletized shipping instead of individual cartons for like FedEx. And the partnership program, that's been incredible for saving on freight costs. I just did a huge PRH return at the beginning of the year, and shipping it back was only like $450, and it was 2 pallets worth of books.
Yeah, we do the same thing. I forgot to mention that. That's a key thing.
Hi. For your calculating turn, do you just use a report from your point of sale system, or do any of you utilize above the tree line? And if you do, how do you like it?
We just use POS.
Yeah, we use POS, and then our accounting office does some tinkering.
Same.
Yeah. We did do Edelweiss for a while. When it was above the tree line, we had more data, but it's just so integrated with the POS system. It just made more sense,
Is there anybody else in here that does above the tree line that might be able to speak to that?
Yeah, we use the analytics on Edelweiss a lot. Hi, I'm sitting right behind you. Yeah, the thing that I don't like about it is it doesn't know my specific store necessarily. So it says your economics turn is really low. I'm a feminist bookstore. We don't have that. And it might say that my, queer nonfiction is maybe a little high right now in terms of my stock. So yeah, but we definitely use it to look at what our turns are.
Yeah, that's my main complaint with it is it'll be like, you need more books in this section. And then it nominates a bunch of titles. And I'm like, first of all, I would never categorize that there. And it's not relevant to the store. So I think we do get a report card, but I pretty much ignore it.
So this is kind of piggybacking on the question before, but Cody, you specifically said that you went from doing non-returnable accounts to returnable. My store, we sell new and used books, and when we're pulling overstock, we end up kind of folding some of that into the used section, like at a discounted price, and then we do some returns of publishers to Ingram. And I know we don't get back as much from Ingram as if we return to the publishers, but I'm just curious, why you decided to make that change, how you thought about the economics of it, and just like the additional labor of, packaging books up and freight and all of that stuff.
Yeah, so Richard Howarth, the store's proprietor, I think he even had a chapter in the old ABA book selling manual. Yeah, PK remembers about the art of buying non-returnable, and we did it well, and I think it worked. But I think just over time, as I said, if you just look at the promos you can use and everything, because what kills you is on the front list. I would still be cautious, but you still make so many mistakes, and we just have to remainder those in place. And I just started looking at, maybe we were losing a point or two on non-returnable versus returnable using the promos that we now have, but it just made more sense to me. And so yeah, I don't think, and it was really hard to do with Big Five. We only did 2 of them, but it made it difficult. And I just think these times have changed. You can get that same amount of discount now with promos.
There's a high penalty from Ingram. Not only if you didn't buy it from them, not only the discount is higher, on top of that, there's per title charge as well. So
We do it exactly the same way with bringing some. We just convert some stuff to used stuff if it's not worth our time. We just convert it to used, and then that way, hopefully, our trade policies, help move it out the store, and we can make a few bucks on it.
Going back to the turns, do you or anybody have a great way for pulling B2B and event titles out of category turn reports? Or do you bother doing that?
I mean, I know that our accounting office does it, but I think it's not an easy or great way. I think that if I'm thinking of the process, it's a little removed from me. I think that our B2B purchaser has a log, like a Google log, that they track their transactions. And so it's easier for the accounting office to look into that and just pull them out when they're doing the monthly flash, the monthly reporting. But we do have a note now when we're looking at like the financials of what like big offsite events or B2Bs, things like that, were affecting the in-store sales versus the total numbers that we have.
Yeah, we'll do some like kind of back of the napkin calculations because we don't have a convenient way of doing it. But yeah, it is hard whenever like, you're selling hundreds of copies of The Great Gatsby and it's inflating, what's actually performing in your store on the shelf. One thing that I've thought about in the past is having like, since we have our 2 locations now, is possibly adopting a third like warehouse location and then running all of my school and institutional accounts through my warehouse, my warehouse store, just to kind of keep that separately, just so I can because right now where we're at, our Denham Springs store is doing a lot more institutional sales, and our Lafayette store is trying to get that off the ground. And so our Lafayette numbers are going to be much more reflective of what's on the shelf and what's, over-the-counter sales from a day-to-day, whereas our Denham store is going to be kind of inflated with those institutional numbers. But so I've kind of thought about that, but that's also just an expensive way to do it. But
I have a shop in an area where maybe like 50% of the population shares our values. And so we curate inventory around, it's a negotiation. Mostly we curate around our values. And that sometimes means we have a lot of inventory that just doesn't sell. And as I've owned the shop longer, I've had to like emotionally detach from some of my inventory. But I still cling to some books that, for lack of a better term, are like aspirational inventory that I don't want to sink my own ship, but I also want certain titles on the shelf. Do you guys think about your inventory outside of the bottom line at all? And is there any metrics, or are there any metrics around that? Or, because it feels very subjective to me, and I don't want to be losing a ton of money for I don't know, stupid reasons.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have titles that might sell one a year, but I'm going to keep all of Toni Morrison's backlists on the shelf because I believe in having it on the shelf. So there are, I consider them just my personal feeling about books that Flyleaf must have, regardless of how they sell. And I kind of have this canon. It's just me, so it's in my brain. If I worked with someone else, I suppose I'd have to codify it. But yeah, I agree. There are some things that we're going to carry even if it's not economical.
Yeah, in our inventory system, we have a code. We have IBID, but we in the MISC fields it's B key, but basically it's titles that we think are important to have in the store at all times that we don't want to lose. But then we can also run a report every so often to see how they're actually performing, pull some off, move some more on. And so that's a pretty good way. And the other thing I'd say is that we have section leaders who are responsible for doing their own sales reports to the buyers, and then also they pull their own returns. I mean, we've generated a report, but then they pull the returns. But we always tell them if there's a book that shows up on your return report, but you love it, then you can keep it. We can keep it, but you need to work for it. So get a shelf talker on there, figure out a program throughout the store that's a central read or something, and just if you don't have time to actually write a shelf talker for books that you read 15 years ago, develop a little branded shelf talker that can go around your store that looks like an essential read or something like that, so that it has more attention, and maybe we'll pull that turn on its own.
Yeah, and I'll give like indie presses more time to sell than I'll give a major publisher. You know, like I kind of
Or university presses.
yeah, they get more latitude.
Yeah, our two stores are in very different areas. Our Denham Springs store is in a very conservative area, and our Lafayette store is in a more progressive area. And so one of the benefits of that is we get to just move stuff over to Lafayette when we actually want to try to get it off the shelf and sell through it. But before we had that store, you know, in Denham Springs, Louisiana, there are 3 Democrats, and we sell books to all of them. and so it's, you know, trying to manage that where, you know, we're not overextending ourselves on that, but it's also, you know, there are books about, you know, ideas that we want shared within our community. And so for us, there's just, you know, there's no, you can't put a metric on it. It's just gut feeling for us.
Hi. We're a newer store. We just celebrated our 2nd birthday, and I'm the sideline buyer. It seems like no matter how many sidelines I try and get in, I'm constantly running out. Do you guys run reports on how many turns you have for your sidelines? Do you have goals for how many turns you have for them, or how much you need in your store? Because we're really struggling to find that. Like, do I need to actually start putting sidelines on some of my bookshelves? Do I need less books? You know, does anyone have any information on that or advice?
I mean, the other manager, Lynn Roberts, does most of the sideline buying, but we share an office, and she definitely runs reports. I don't about turns and which sidelines are working, and but I think she just works with her reps and waits for specials. You know, she'll hold an order, but you know, when it becomes the holidays, you got to order what you got to order. And I think we just do a projected order after running a report, and you just kind of figure it out. I wish I had a better answer.
We have things that we kind of always want to sell, and then things we're only going to sell once. And it's just a conscious decision. And it's kind of scary because you're like, well, I don't think I'm going to sell this again, but it did sell well. And that's kind of how I've gotten a groove for it. And also like promo specials. I also use Fair a lot. But I also went to a retail show, and that was super helpful too, because versus seeing it online versus, you know, seeing it in person. So I don't know, like we have design centers in Seattle, but I went to a New York show and it was super helpful. Yeah, and it made a huge difference in sidelines this year.
Yeah, on that front, this is where I think about profit margin more than turns. Like if something's selling a lot, I know I want it, but if I need more birthday cards, I'm going to check in with our gift reps, and these are a fair marketplace coming up, and see where I'm going to get the best deal, and they're going to sell. Like it seems like anything we bring in basically just sells. So it's just a matter of enough money and where can we get it the cheapest from, and kind of keeping that balance.
Can I? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I don't know if it's okay to ask this, but I'm going to throw it out there. It goes back to the conversation we were having before this recent question. Do you sell any books that you don't believe in? And how, I don't know. Can anyone even answer it? I don't know, but I haven't opened my store yet. And so these are just things that I think about before I'm doing the work.
Okay, so at my store, we don't believe in censorship. So like if someone wants to order a book that we don't believe in, they absolutely can, but like we won't carry it on our shelves at the time.
The only books that I try not to bring in are franchises that are children's. So cartoon characters and Disney and things that are marketed to children. We try to stay away from, I'm trying to think what those are called.
Licensed.
Because kids I don't believe kids should be marketed to.
How are you on time?
I'm like borderline embarrassed to ask this question. I'm only 6 months old, or my store's only 6 months old. I cannot buy more than like one book. So like I do a restock order every week right now, and I just am mostly restocking what my customers bought the past week, doing our special orders, and doing whatever we call them our vanity orders, the things that we want or whatever's coming out, in the next couple of weeks. And like, that's all we can do. And I guess I just want you all to tell me, is that normal? Like I can't, like for me to think about like buying like in bulk to get a discount or something, like that's just not something that's feasible. And so is that normal? And then like, how long until, like, that's just where I'm at right now. I guess I just want you all to reassure me.
No, totally.
Tell me it's okay, because you are talking about things and I'm like, oh, I'm doing this so wrong.
As a small store that our store's been around for 7 years almost, we're exactly there. It's a staff of 2, like our store is smaller than this room, so we're doing okay. We're not growing as much as we would like to, but I think that if you're selling and you're restocking and you're getting special requests and all those sorts of things, at least for now, I think that's okay. But we want to grow too, so that's not like an official answer. That's like someone else who's been around our store 7 years, from bigger stores who have grown. How can she grow? How can we grow? Is this okay in your opinion, or is it like what do you think we could be doing better?
No, we started our store in 2009 when we opened our brick and mortar location. We started with like $6,000. Like we bought secondhand shelving. We had mostly used inventory, and we scraped and scraped and scraped. And it was all about turning a penny into a nickel, and a nickel into a dime, and a dime into a quarter. And one of the things that we had the most success with early on specifically was like pre-pack deals that publishers would offer, or whether you might be able to get an extra discount on stuff, or pre-pack sidelines, where it's you're not putting together a sticker order, but you're buying like a bundle of stickers with a display or something like that, and getting an extra 5 points in a display or something, and stuff like that, where it's just literally you're just shoestringing it, trying to make another nickel. Mm-hmm. And no, we did that for years and years and years. And I mean, I think that it's like people that went through the Great Depression, like it hardens you a little bit to have to like, think in those terms where it's like, well, I don't have, I can't buy, a pallet of books right now, to get an extra discount on it. But no, you just work it, and yeah, you'll eventually get there for sure.
Just quickly behind you. We've been around for 5.5 years, and we buy very similarly. You should come and talk to us. We've definitely gone through ebbs and flows. We've had to move from a very big space to a very small space, so we've seen the ebbs and flows, things like that. Just know that you're doing the right thing. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about having to buy like a whole carton of things, but definitely come and talk to us, please.
Yeah, and on that note too, we've definitely had times where we've had to tighten our belts, where, 1 year we're living large and everything's going really smooth, but then something happens and it sets us back, and we've got to kind of go back into that mentality of like, focusing on turn over margin. But, we're fortunate that, we've worked through those, not to say that they won't happen again, because I've always got the mentality that like, I'm always ready to just eat rice and beans if I have to.
Hi. I'm trying to forecast ahead of time, like what are the total bills we're going to pay. And I find it challenging because we're dealing directly with publishers who have 30, 60, 90-day terms. So I'm wondering if anybody else is trying to do that, and like if you have any tips.
I ignore it. Everything's net 30 for me. I just ignore it, because like Penguin Random House 120 dating, like I just ignore it, and everything's net 30. Yeah.
I mean, the dating's fine, but I'd rather have the points. I don't know how a good way to do that is, but I mean, I guess it's just kind of in the back of our mind with which company's doing it. But yeah, if you find out, let me know.
To me, dating is like to me, dating is it's like extended dating is it's almost like manipulative, almost, where it's like, they're like trying to lure you into this thing, and then you kind of forget about it because it's like half a year later sometimes with these ridiculous promotions.
Yeah. What I would say is that if at the risk of Paul yelling at me, Paul Yamazaki does a lot of work on spreadsheets looking at dating and when things are coming due, and you might want to seek him out and ask him.
I have a quick, well, maybe not a quick question, but I'm working on taking over a used and new bookstore with the owner. She buys books once a week, but I'm thinking of only taking them in by donation. I was wondering if any of you had advice about that.
I think it depends on your community. I think there's some markets where, you can kind of pay top dollar for used inventory. And then there are other markets where, like for us in South Louisiana, I mean, we have books thrown at us sometimes. And so we're drowning in books.
We're drowning in books.
Yeah.
And we famously are a used bookstore, but we have more new books than ever. But she's the only person that buys books, and nobody else has been trained to do that. Yeah.
What's Adam saying in DC? Yeah. I'll tell you somebody to talk to that might.
At Lost City.
Yeah. I think. And I think we're at our time, right? So yeah. And so thank you guys for coming. And I want to remind you guys, if you don't mind, fill out the session information in the app. And thank you guys. We appreciate it.
Thank y'all.
Thank you for listening to Booked, the bookstore education podcast brought to you by the American Booksellers Association. Don't forget to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast app. Additional educational resources can always be found on the ABA site at www.bookweb.org. Happy reading!